For more fairy tales and to support this page, please follow and subscribe. New story is added every week. Snow White. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Her beauty was unmatched, and she was the fairest in all the land, as beautiful as she was kind. Her mother has long passed away, and Snow White lived in a castle with her father, the king, and her wicked stepmother, the queen. The queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty and would often ask her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" But to her dismay, the mirror would always reply, "You, my queen, are fair. It is true. But Snow White is even fairer than you." Enraged by this, the queen ordered her huntsman to take Snow White deep into the forest and kill her. However, the huntsman, being of kind heart, could not bring himself to do it. Instead, he told Snow White to run far away and never to return to the castle. And so she did. Lost and alone in the forest, Snow White wandered until she came across a small cottage. She knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Upon entering, she saw that the cottage belonged to 7 little men. There were 7 little beds, 7 little chairs, and 7 little coats. There lived the 7 dwarfs who worked in the nearby mines. Their names were Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Bashful, Sleepy, Sneezy, and Dopey. When they returned home from their long day of work, they found Snow White fast asleep in one of their beds. Startled, they woke her up. Doc, being the leader of the group, spoke up. "Well, now, what have we here?" "A young lady in our cottage." "How did you get here, my dear?" Snow White explained her story, and the dwarfs were sympathetic to her plight. Grumpy, being the most suspicious of the group, was hesitant about letting her stay. But look how tall she is, this cannot be good." But Happy, being the most optimistic of the group, was overjoyed. "We can have a celebration and invite all our friends to meet Snow White." Sleepy, being the most tired of the group, was barely able to stay awake. "I don't know. I'm awfully sleepy." Snow White smiled. "Oh, please let me stay. I can help you. I'll cook and clean and do all the chores for you." The dwarfs were won over by her kind nature and agreed to let her stay. Snow White soon became like a sister to them, and they all loved her dearly. Little did they know that after all this time the evil queen had decided to ask her magic mirror once again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" To her surprise, the mirror once again responded, "You, my queen, are fair. It is true. But Snow White is even fairer than you." The queen realized that the huntsman had spared the life of the pretty princess, and she is still alive somewhere. The evil queen was blinded with rage. One day, while the dwarfs were at work, the wicked queen disguised herself as an old peddler woman and tricked Snow White into eating a poisoned apple. The apple put the poor princess into a deep sleep, and the queen rejoiced that her evil plan has finally succeeded. Upon returning home and finding Snow White unconscious, the dwarfs were beside themselves with grief. Doc spoke up. "What can we do? We have to do something to save her." They tried to wake her, but nothing seemed to work. Eventually, they gave up and decided to place her in a beautiful glass coffin so she can continue to sleep peacefully and they could always look at her and remember her beauty and her kind heart. They placed the coffin in the most beautiful garden near their home. They filled the garden with flowers to keep company of the beautiful girl. As fate would have it, a noble prince who was passing by saw Snow White in her glass coffin. He fell in love with her at first sight. She was the most beautiful creature he has ever seen. He couldn't bear to be apart from Snow White, so he visited her every day and spent hours in the pretty garden. One day, desperate, he asked the dwarfs if he could take her away with him in his kingdom and in his castle. The dwarfs bided the prince, whose heart was grieving for the beautiful girl, and they finally agreed. When the day came, as the prince's servants were carrying Snow White away, they stumbled, and the jolt from the fall caused the poisoned apple that was stuck in Snow White's straw to dislodge. To everyone's surprise, the beautiful princess soon woke up. The prince was overjoyed. The two of them fell deeply in love and were married in a grand ceremony. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after, and the seven dwarfs would visit them often to tell stories and share their happiness. The prince ordered for the evil queen to be put in the royal dungeon. In the end, the wicked queen received her just punishment for her evil deeds, and Snow White lived the life she deserved, one full of love, joy, and the kindness of friends. For more fairy tales and to support this page, please follow and subscribe. New story is added every week.